Welcome back to On the Mic with Shaz and to our special series, Women in Tech Leadership, The Upsides. I'm so excited today because we're joined by Kavita Dhanraj. Now, Kavita, we caught up a few times, but I never have to use your last name. Am I saying your last name correctly?
Perfect. It's perfect.
Yes.
Most Indian names are easy. You pronounce every alphabet.
Oh, good. Good to know. Thank you. Kavi, now you have a fantastic story from starting out your career as a test analyst and all the ways through to a chief data officer to now exploring special interest ventures to align with your passion for innovation and strategic transformation. So, listeners, let me tell you a little bit about Kavi. So, Kavi blends professional rigor, I would say, with creative flair, whether it's refining campaigns, empowering women in tech, which is, we've had many conversations, haven't we, about this, Kavi? This is where we are super aligned and we chat about this and could chat about this forever. Kavi, you thrive on meaningful impact and continuous growth, and you're always ready to connect dots others haven't noticed yet. It's your thing. Okay.
Absolutely
So,
love that.
yes, yes. So, today we're going to dive into what really lights Kavi up about leadership, how she has navigated some of those risky moments we all worry about, and most importantly, the upsides we don't talk about enough. So, Kavi, thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to get into this with you.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome. So, for our listeners to get to know you a little bit and get some insights into Kavi, let me start off by asking you if we peeked into your calendar this week, what's one thing on it that makes you excited?
For the first time this year, I have put all the personal birthdays of family and a wedding anniversary and all that into the calendar. So I'm very excited that this is the first time I will not forget personal stuff, which I do every year. So I'm very excited that my calendar is clean about that. I have good memory of work, but my personal stuff is not so great. So let me start with that.
Awesome, awesome. And what about this then? If your leadership style was a tech gadget, what would it be and why?
I don't know if there was a gadget, but that I would connect to in the sense of it. But off late, I've been doing a lot of research on doorbells, video doorbells.
Oh my goodness, I love it.
And I thought, that's an interesting one because I initially thought I just need this. I thought it would be simple. Yes, they're technically simple, but the user choice of video doorbells can range to a point. And I love the complexity. As I started to go in, I'm like, "Ah, okay, I like that. I like that part of the complexity. I now have to test this bit." So I think considering the recency bias in my head, I would go with the video doorbells.
So you feel that video doorbells relate to your leadership style?
Yeah, it's good because you get to see people these days. You have multiple lenses to view different aspects and perspectives of different people. It does make a bit of a noise, so you can't say you didn't hear it. It does serve its purpose. It doesn't, people who are interested to see you will ring it, so you're in the game. So I think it's a good one for me right now. It
Nice.
does a simplicity, but also purposeful perspective.
I like it. I like it, Kavi. Alrighty. Tell me, talk me through what first excited you about stepping into a leadership role in tech. Was there that kind of aha moment when you thought, yes, this is for me? I
No,
I like your giggle.
absolutely not. I actually started to I started observing people, and I was in consulting before, so it just felt natural to see someone before me go through a bit of journey, and I was like, I do want that. I do want to try it. Why can't I do that? And I think it's a bit of a curiosity and a bit of a stubbornness that drove me into that. But having said that, it was definitely not something where I said, "Ah, this is for me." And my first gig when I actually did something for delivering a project was an absolute failure, and I have more scars than anybody would have. And I loved it because I don't think I would have learned what was required and when it is required if I looked successful from the first gig. So it was a very progressive journey. And what I mean by progressive is there were times I had to pick things which were horizontal growth. So it wasn't really about growing up through the ladder or areas, but picking up new genres of tech industry. So let's say moving from testing to service delivery or project management. So it's more around the horizontal navigation, which gives you a very good idea of what people expect in each role, what is the expectation versus what's the reality. And then I think there was one point where I realized, I think the biggest, if I go back into my memory lane too, I think this is not wrong. The things that attract me is complex, convoluted problems, which have a combination of people, technology. And I feel like if I can get anything around that, that's definitely me. Because when you take people through that and you unplug it, and at the end of the journey, you go, remember where we started, where we did. I think that feels really good, and that's definitely for me. I love to be part of the team and love to solve those complex problems. So in the leadership style and in tech, I think it was a combination of that complex problems, a tinge of a lot to do with people, because a lot of the time leadership, people talk about leadership and titles and etc., but I think it's
Yeah, yeah.
about the people. And so that's not complex, less complex.
Absolutely. And look, it's fascinating that, you sound like you've gone on a bit of a journey and gone into different roles in tech as well, right? And like you mentioned, Kavi, you didn't like you had a bit of failures in there, but rather than see them as setbacks and shrink down and go, right, that's enough of that, you kind of like leaned in more to what was driving you, and you loved that complexities. You loved you let the complexities drive you, the complexities of people, but you love being around those people and helping them through those complex challenges that you face, particularly in tech. So you let that kind of that purpose drive you more than what was holding you back. And then, here you are.
Absolutely. There are times when you don't want to do that as well. There are times when you go, oh no, I don't want to experience that again. And there are times when you say, I
Yeah.
will. Yeah, I think it is more around keeping in my head that, it's not always something clear as this, but always being asking myself, was it me or was it the situation? You know, and if it is me, then yes, don't give up. But if it is the situation, then you'll have to look into it whether you could have influenced it different. A good friend of mine once told me, and I always follow this absolutely to my heart, is can you add value? Will you be allowed to add value? And those are two different criteria you need to constantly look at. And there are projects in my career that I wouldn't want to go back to either. Absolutely. But there are projects that I would love to grow. And I use the word project quite loosely. It is not necessarily ring fenced to just typical software projects.
Right. Yeah.
Now, when I started into leadership roles, I had a very young son, and not anymore. In that when you go back home, you want to go and be brutally honest to yourself, saying, would I say this to my son, that you're allowed to give up? And if I do, or you should be giving up, or if I'm not going to tell him that, then I have no right to not do that. So that's also partly the motivation that kept me
Wow.
going.
Yeah, that's fantastic to keep going in your head, like showing up for your son, showing up for yourself, but then also showing up for your son as well, and what you want to teach him moving forward. So that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
And I'm the same as you, like in situations where I always try to think, what can I learn from this setback or this horrible project or this horrible role or this horrible environment? But I think it took a while for me to realize that, Kavi. Was that the same for you? It took me a while to click. And yeah, that was one of the things I found I dipped in and out of. So I'd get it sometimes, and then other times I'd beat myself up so much.
Oh, we all do that, don't we? We love to be loved, and we love to be, everybody loves a pat on the back. Who doesn't? I think it
Oh
is,
yeah, let's do it right now.
yeah,
Right, here we go.
it's both. Yeah, of course, we would all go through it. And my coach, one of my very good coaches, Caroline, if she wouldn't mind me mentioning her, always used to tell me, would you react to this if you were a fly on the wall in the same situation, as opposed to you actually exhibiting it? And I think that has helped me a lot to change the way I think. It was a little, I'm using that as an example now because that helps a lot of people to think about problem space differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is natural to feel uncomfortable, to feel let down, to feel guilty, to feel all sorts of emotions come through, right? People go through a lot of it. I think it's more understanding what was the expectation that you set for yourself and why do you feel that. And I think that also helps you go, oh, okay, maybe my expectation was I was going to get apples, but turned out to be something else, and I think that helps as well. It doesn't take away the journey. You still have to go through it. It's going to be rough patch, but having friends, having family, having a network where you could have those hard conversations and say, is it just me? And the most honest friend will tell you it's either you or not.
Absolutely. Let's talk now again, for the listeners listening in, they might be in situations where they're kind of on the fence, they want to go into leadership. However, they are seeing a lot of posts and things like that about how challenging it is. I chat to women in tech every day, and I'm hearing that come up a lot where they're in that stage of their career. They're probably 4 or 5 years in. And when you ask what's next, oh, leadership, but I see this post about how challenging it is. And it's deterring them away and then I'm on the other side chatting to women in leadership, and they're telling me how great it is and the journey has been amazing. So, what's, from your experience, Kavi, what's one incredible benefit of being in tech leadership that you think more women need to hear?
I think it's very important to ask. And I'll give you a very timely incident that's happened over the weekend. I met a lady has an incredible journey in technology, and is a manager in a team driving a lot of the objectives, etc., and the vision. Her question to me was, I do want to apply for these senior roles, but I'm not sure. And when I unplugged a bit more, and it was funny. It was a social environment. We were at a common friend's lunch, so it was quite casual. So I felt like she was able to open up much better.
Yes,
And
save.
during the conversation, one of the things she asked me was, "What's the benefit versus the risk?" I must admit, it did ground me, and I was a bit a shock because I never thought about someone asking me that question around risk versus benefit. And so we actually unpacked a bit. So what she was actually wanting is, bluntly, what would I lose if I tried? I had to have a conversation with her to say, um, I'm not sure what you would lose, because you would lose what you would lose in any job. It's what the job demands, or what the role demands, or what the leadership expectation demands. But what you could consider is, what would be the worst if you went down that journey? What could be the worst? You would lose your job, say, as an example, or you hate it to a point that you want to put it to your resignation, or something like that. Think about what is worse for you, or I can't spend even 5 hours a week with my family. I don't know what's worse for you. You all have to decide that.
Nice.
But think about what's best for you as well. You've been curious and you've been hungry. You are asking the question, can I do that? That means you feel you can do it. And if that confidence doesn't come from within you, no one is going to give you that confidence either. So if I have to give, most people tell you need influential skills. To me, I think it is about self-belief and confidence. I think it's something sports teaches a lot of people is you lose a game, you pull yourself up for the game next day. I don't think people think about work and psychology of that. I think we kind of judge people for making mistakes much quicker at work than you would in a sport. And you would say, oh, that's sport. Somebody wins, somebody loses. But when it comes to day, and if you use the same psychology, I just can't see why people would be less impacted about the outcome of it because you would take more
Absolutely.
risks. And so I would say self-belief and confidence would be one thing. Of course, influential skills. I don't think women network well enough. I mean, I know a lot of women in leadership who are excellent with their networking, but the bridge that most people are wanting to cross on leadership, I feel like that's the group that needs to work a little bit on the network.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that because I see that come up a lot in my sessions with women in tech where they mention they're a little intimidated to
Hmm.
go and network, and particularly with people in senior roles. They feel intimidated, which is another reason why I wanted to bring these upsides and to see, look at Kavi. She's super approachable, she's cool, and it's
Oh,
not that
that's
scary.
no. At worst, people would tell you they're busy, or you won't hear from them. I've also seen people who never respond. I have written to some other senior leadership, women in leadership, who I've never received any responses, even when I'm a leader as well. So that doesn't mean they're ignoring you or something like that. It just means they're busy or time will come up when it is. And the ones who do just piggyback on it and move on. And the other thing I also will say is clarity. I feel sometimes people see leadership in the context of what they see in their current companies as well, right? Or what social media tells you. I think
Yes.
it is very important for them to define leadership for themselves, right? I have seen some incredible leaders who don't necessarily have a flashy title. But if I ever have to get a second opinion, I would definitely go back to them because it's how their clarity of thought, their decision making, their influential skills, their subject matter, all these add up to their personality. So I think defining leadership and being really clear and confident would be something I would genuinely recommend everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you totally, Kavi. And I feel like it does boil down to that self-belief, self-worth, because then when you're in a room with people advocating for yourself, because you've worked on that self-belief, self-worth, clarity, your defined leadership, you're not as intimidated and it doesn't bother you as much and you're not as disappointed when they don't get back to you or they don't respond to you or they laugh at what you say. You're so sure of yourself. I guess a lot of what comes up in what I experience every day talking to women in tech is the how. So we work a lot on the how to get yourself worth. I had this like throughout my career, be authentic and be confident. And you're like, that's great and all, but how? And it wasn't until I was coached and mentored that I understood what that meant and got there myself. And so now I'm addicted to getting others there because once you know that, everything else is less intimidating, isn't it, Kavi?
It is, and there is no super recipe out there. And the analogy I would give here is like, coming from India, it's a good background for me to give. When you go to an Indian restaurant, you can use the word curry like 15 times, and each
Yeah.
one could make it different. But your flavors and your taste, mean the recipe to that would be different. And that's something I genuinely think people need to think about is what is my flavor? How much am I willing to invest? So let's say you want to get a certificate in something and you're wanting to spend 5 hours a week studying on Coursera, doesn't matter, universities, courses. You set your time aside, right? So networking or working on certain things is a discipline. You need to get there. Sometimes you can't, but you can't beat yourself. Yeah, I feel like that could be a good way for people to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that comes up in when I'm chatting to women in this space day to day is many women from diverse backgrounds worry about fitting in. So let me ask you, Kavi, was there a point where you stopped trying to fit in and leaned into your difference?
This can sound cheesy. It's not. I genuinely mean it. I think I've never tried to be someone else or fit in. And I genuinely mean that. I think, yes, you adapt. For example, you come from a particular cultural background and you're exposed to a different cultural background. Australia is different to India. Australia is different to New Zealand to some extent. Yes, similar, but not the same, but it's different. It's different to America, it's different to Africa. The whole point is to fit in enough to understand the other person's perspective, but not fit into a point where you lose your identity. Again,
Absolutely.
I'll bring back parenting as a good example, right? I had to bring my son up in a country which is very different to my cultural background, but you got to teach them that both the elephant and the butterfly have their space and their positions and their flair, the two different things, but they're still both beautiful. They both have their own
Oh my goodness, that gave
characteristics.
me goosebumps. I love
it's
that.
it's it's very, I think fitting in is important, and I think I would twist this point a little into organizations rather than individuals, right? And sometimes organizations also go too far to make people to blend in, or they dilute their policies and etc. But the question is there a proper environment for people to be recognized and be visible? That's something to think about. And it is also very important to not, and something I've been conscious, and I'm not saying this would work for everybody, but something to be conscious about is your diversity and your background are your strengths, but that doesn't mean you also paint that out to others. If everything needs to be logically separated because you're this or you're that, or you should do this or you shouldn't do that, that also makes it quite hard for you to blend in, but for others to blend with you. So it's about the work, it's the mission,
Yeah.
and it's the purpose that we are going and what is needed to do that. What you do after that in your personal life, good luck. It's, the sky is the limit to that. You feel free to do whatever you want.
Crack on.
Yeah, it's just, you can, yes, that's the diversity you want to bring in. Absolutely. I used to have colleagues where if I ever told them that, when our families visit, we could be getting it about 10 people visiting us at a time and they'll all be accommodated at home. They'll go, no, I can't do that. Totally understandable. But those are the conversations you want to have at coffees and lunches and not where you're working. Work is work and that should not be diluted. And I feel like that's something to clearly understand about fitting in is very, very important. At least I have been very conscious about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Kavi. And there's, I think, a difference as well with fitting in and belonging, right? Because fitting in is where you're changing yourself to fit in, right? And
Yeah.
belonging is where you are just slotting in and people are just accepting you and you're okay whether they do or they don't because you're that self-assured, you know? So it's the belonging part. And you're right too. It's really, it boils down to, you know, your career is professional, you're joining a company. So the purpose is the vision for the company, the product that you're working on. You're collaboratively going towards that. So, like you said, like, you know, crack on with your personal stuff and, you know, you do you. It's about our purpose. Our sole purpose is why we're here. And let's just focus on that collaboratively together and have each other's backs, you know? It's,
Even
I mean,
within
it's
a
as easy
cultural,
as that, but we make it so complicated.
it is. And even within a country, even if you didn't have people from, diverse backgrounds or differences, If you had everybody in the same country in a room working, there will be differences and there will be fitting in
Yeah,
challenges. So
absolutely.
it's no different to it. And I think while I don't disagree that there is still more to do with bringing more women to do it, I also have been seeing a lot of positive trends in that. I think it's more around people being very clear around what they expect. And again, going back to the style of leadership and understanding that is so critical in that
Yeah,
space.
absolutely. And like often you find people going job to job and wondering why they keep landing in the same environment, same patterns. It's when you take that pause and
Yeah.
you revisit, okay, who am I now? Have I outgrown where I am? Do I want to be in leadership, but this environment's holding me back from it? Could I first understand who I am now? I often say if someone put in a job description, what I did the past 10 years, I'd be like, hell no, right? Because I had to go through a lot of failings. And if someone told me and wrote that down for me, I'd be like, nah, pass, too uncomfortable, too uncertain, forget about it. And I would never have done it. But because I've done it, I love my life. I love what I
Yeah.
do day to day. And I think, coming back to ourselves and who we are, that starts attracting what you want and the environment you want and the people you want around you. Even when there's chaos and tornadoes happening around you, you're still sitting peaceful because you're peaceful in the knowledge. I know myself. I know my background. I know who I am. I don't need to prove it. I don't need to sing it from the rafters. I know what I'm here for, and that's my focus. And then people start attracting to that energy that you have, and then you get this nice vibe around you. You attract it, right?
It is. The different backgrounds will also pose challenges around how do you perceive a particular discussion or a statement. It's very important to know. I'll give you a slight example of myself. I am a very black and white person, and for me, there is no middle layer, like reading between the lines. That is generally not a common thing for me. When I say something, I am. When I don't say something, I don't. It's very black and white. But that doesn't mean everybody does in the same way. So over years, I had to learn to go, okay, why did that person say that? And I don't go deeper into analysis paralysis. So, but that does help. Okay, so is this person a little shy? And I'm giving us more at personality diversity, not just in terms of cultural diversity. Diversity is huge. It could be gender diversity, it could be cultural, it could be anything. And I
Absolutely.
feel like that sort of a unique lens would help, each person being conscious that they bring their nuances and with empathy, and being grounded to what you are, maybe the conversation will be more objective.
Yes.
And I'll say another other thing is sometimes you hear, I don't know if you ever come across this, but you hear two or three people arguing about a point, and in the middle you sit there and listen to both sides, and you go, are they actually talking about the same thing,
Yeah.
or they're trying to make the same point? But it's very interesting that very small percentage of people come go, yes, I understand there is a problem, but what would be the solution? And so the arguments and the differences usually don't come in stating the problem. Sorry, actually come in stating the problem than actually solving the solution. So if the focus is more around, yep, I get there's a problem, I get there's a challenge, what's the thing we need to get through, then you're actually looking at an objective solution. So it's a slightly different topic, but if you bring the same problem solving to all the differences, I think it should at least help people understand themselves.
Yeah, it's the approach, it's different communication styles, but it's us having, instead of going, oh, this is different, I'm going to judge it and I'm going to attack it and I'm going to gossip about it. Instead of that, just be chill and just be like, cool, I'm compassionate to that. I respect that's their personal mapping. I'm not going to argue with their personal mapping. That's their journey they've been on. That's who they are right now. So I'm not going to have an argument with that. you know do better things with your energy. Preserve your energy for peace And like you said, you listened because you realized someone was trying to win that situation.
Good. Debates are good. Conflict is good. You'll have different
Healthy.
opinions. Bring it on. But only in the context of the problem, not the,
Yeah,
personal views.
exactly. It's all in the approach and what are you trying to resolve? And let's get to the bottom of that and get the solutions. So, yeah, absolutely. Kavi, has there been a moment where someone told you, because I know it happened to you early in your career, seeing you lead made me believe I could too. Has anyone ever said that to you?
Maybe. I'm hoping somebody did. But I can't. I
They're
do know a
definitely
lot.
thinking it, Kavi. They're definitely thinking it.
I think people do ask me a lot of questions, so implying they are wanting to learn something about it. So yes, definitely encouraged a lot of women to take more risks and put them in the spot. But I've had lots and lots of them come, and one such person came, as I was saying to you, the weekend we were at a common place with at a friend's place, and apparently she saw me at a talk somewhere almost two and a half years ago. And she remembers me and she said, "Oh, I remember you. I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to connect, but I thought you would be busy." I almost cracked up saying, "Yeah, I will be busy, but if you sent me, it wouldn't matter." But yes, she. A lot of people do come and ask me, and some people specifically ask me, "How did you get to this title?" Or some people ask me, "What is your journey?" So all the curiosity was about asking them. Asking me was also a moment for me to think that a lot of my career wasn't just about execution; it was also about modeling someone else. Yeah, every time someone asks me a question about it, it makes me reflect about myself as well. So yeah, quite a few people have come and talked to me about their vision and their journey. No, obviously they've always been curious about mine. I would
Yeah.
say yeah, some.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And how has bringing your whole self, culture, perspective, identity made your teams or solutions stronger, Kavi?
Probably have to bring um, a concept here of my. I'm gonna have to speak about my family a bit because I've been brought up by two strong women, my grandmother and my mother. And one of the most common things that I learned from my grandmother quite young was every day is a new day. She would never accept yesterday as a reason for today, whether it was about not wanting to go to school because I
High
had
five,
work.
Grandma.
When the day is gone, it's a new day. I think part of that, and that has nothing specifically to do with cultural as such, but that sort of a background definitely had made me. And my mother was working a lot in the banking industry, so I've seen her do a lot of work. And while I hated to even want to try at banks, but it did provide a lot of focus to observe working women, challenges, the drive to not give up. I think that one other thing that I was definitely taught quite young was no matter what, you have to think about being financially independent. And I don't quite know where that's come from. Nobody has given me any tragic stories, melodrama reasons for it. But that was something that I have been imbibed with quite young. Being
Great.
financially independent does help you to think about what you're going to do, where you're going to go. So the upbringing helped me. Um, I think I like to give up when I'm ready to give up something. Respecting your job, respecting your relationships, building relationship with intent, listening to what has been unsaid by people, or having some patience to listen to what people are saying. Because a lot of the time people lack patience. All these have been quite early imbibed values. For me to just scream out would be a yeah, it has to be a really trigger. I would go, okay, cool. That's not what we are expecting. Well, I don't think I like that. But That would be the best I would get to. Yeah, those are some of the aspects of cultural background that probably shaped my leadership, which is very unusual, unique lens as well.
Fantastic. I love it. Let's dedicate this episode to Grandma Dhanraj and Mama Dhanraj, shall we?
Yeah,
There's nothing better than having influential women like that, strong women in your life. And
absolutely.
I'm sure they'd be super proud of you, Kavi, because you're just amazing.
Yeah, I think it's very important because I think very early it's been taught to see the difference between professional but never leaving your personal position. So I think a lot of people must have heard Indrani Nui talk about her situation when she becomes a CEO, but somewhat similar, not exactly the same. But when it comes to family, when it comes to your role as a woman, you have hundreds of roles at any given point of time. I'm not saying men don't, but it's just that you are constantly shifting your roles between many responsibilities.
Thank you, Grandma. Thank you, Mama. Dhanraj. Woohoo! So, for our listeners, Kavi, what would you say is one number one upside to being a woman in tech leadership for you?
Because when you're in tech, you're trying to solve a business problem and it's a complex problem. And then you're also dealing, and I'll come back to it because that's the core of who I am, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think not many places can you actually use a combination of things. You have to learn the business side of it to be able to know where technology will play a role. And then if you were having to think about what sort of people you need to be able to realize this vision, this journey, what skills are required. It's not just about the technology skills, it's also about the personality traits that you need. So I would say all that together was something I truly enjoy. It's very transformative.
So, to hear that, listeners, Kavi's upsides are complexities and finding the solutions. Woohoo!
I love it. I mean, look, not everybody. I'm not at a war front trying to solve problems. Creating something and making uh, difference at the end of it, that does make you
Yeah, yeah.
feel good.
It's the purpose, isn't it? The purpose is bigger than everything else. And when the purpose is bigger than everything else, nothing stops you. Like nothing. Listen,
Absolutely.
Kavi, this has been such an energizing conversation. Thank you so much for not just sharing the challenges, Kavi, but also the reasons it's all worth it, the growth, the impact, and those unexpected joys as well. And for all of you listening, I hope this has helped you see just how many upsides there are when women like us step into leadership roles in tech. If this resonated, please share it with another woman in tech who needs to hear these stories. And don't forget to subscribe so you can catch our next episode. We've got more incredible guests lined up, and I can't wait to share their stories and journeys with you as well. Until next time, keep pushing for the change you want to see and know you absolutely deserve a seat at the table. Thank you, listeners. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.